NATO just announced what? In today's stream, we've got two main pieces of news that has just broken, and this has happened today, actually. In fact, let me take you straight to the shared screen and show you the first one. So the first piece is about how Germany is now preparing for war, which we'll come on to. I'll talk about that in a moment. But the one thing I wanted to play for you is this. Let me just turn the echo off a moment. Let me play this video for you.
It also sends a clear signal to any potential adversary that we will and can protect and defend all allies against all threats. I really want to say to all the participants, lots of success in the exercise. Great that you do this. It is very important.
Okay. Then what exactly am I talking about here? What is he talking about here? Well, apparently this has been a secretive exercise for a number of years, but they've made it public now as a deterrent to Russia. So on Monday, this coming Monday, let me open the article for you. It states that that NATO is launching a nuclear drill with 17 partners within NATO. And this is due to, they said this is added significance due to the US mulling scaling down its military presence in Europe. So Mark Rutte, who's the NATO secretary there, defense, although it's we'll see if it's defensive when push comes to shove. But he's been talking quite heavily about how he's concerned that President Trump is going to pull out completely of Europe. I've said a number of times, I don't think that is the case. I don't think the US is going to pull out of Europe or their bases or their troops. It wouldn't be smart strategically to do that. So I'd like to know in the comments then what you think. What is the real reason he's saying that the US wants to pull out of Europe here? Because I don't believe that the US does want to pull out of Europe. So he's saying this is why they've had to push forward these military nuclear drills. So this is called, again, we talked about this recently, all these new exercises. This one is called Steadfast Noon, and it will take place in the Netherlands, Belgium, the UK, and Denmark. He says due to a wave of drone incursions and cyber attacks from Russia that have put these threats onto European countries. This 2-week program includes 14 members of the military alliance, occurring as Europe fears the US may reduce or withdraw its military assets from the continent. This has prompted several European NATO allies to discuss changing the continent's nuclear architecture for the first time in decades and to look at a more aggressive offensive structure as opposed to defensive. So that is the first part of what's going on here that they've announced. And Mark Rutte has actually said these aren't, the only thing that's changed is that we're now going on the offensive. So this isn't tactical nuke defensive exercises. This is offensive exercises in order to, and they always say this, of course, in order to, we want to, how can I put this? They want to threaten, they want to use the big guns in order to make sure that Putin doesn't attack. So he's like basically saying peace through war, if you know the expression there. It's like peace through aggression is what we are doing. Now there's another big piece that's just come out on Germany here. Okay, this is the piece. I'll just show you it here. How Germany is preparing for war. So let's have a look at this, because it was quite an interesting piece. So they're saying that the threat was sufficiently great that NATO felt the need to send troops east across Europe to face off against Moscow. So this is the exercise that they are working on. This was the scenario the German government spent several days rehearsing last month, working out how the army would transport its soldiers towards NATO's eastern flank in the event of conflict in the Balkans. For 3 days, the port of Hamburg played host to the exercise Red Storm Bravo. This is soldiers and the emergency services, as well as civilian organizations taking part. This was the largest military exercise since the end of the Cold War. They say in the event of conflict with Russia, Germany would, because of its geographical position, become the hub for NATO to coordinate the flow of soldiers and weaponry to the front line in the east. Troops from the US and across Western and Southern Europe, including the UK, would flow through the country towards Warsaw and so on. However, they again say they are not sure if the US would get involved. And again, I don't need to read all the stuff. It's all propaganda against, the United States, saying a lot of negative things about the United States here. But the bottom line is you don't know. No one knows what will happen. You don't know what President Trump will do in that situation if Article 5 is triggered. And I think it's going to come down to who really triggers it. Is it that NATO triggers it by an offensive action, or is it that it's triggered through an offensive action by Russia? I think that's the sort of key distinction here, because there's a big difference. I think if it were the latter, President Trump would probably get involved with the US. I think if it was the former, he'd probably say, you've done this, you've escalated it, you've done this attack, you've done whatever else, we're not going to get involved, you got yourself into this mess, we told you years ago you needed to raise your spending per GDP and you just didn't do it, you just left it to the US for defense. So I think that's probably the line he would go along with. So it goes on then, this is a huge operation, the Operation Plan Germany, this is funny, details of which were leaked to the press. Unknown leak. Every single time they say this, it was leaked to the press, an unknown leak. I mean, pretty much every secret is out there at this point. They envisage 800,000 NATO troops, 200,000 vehicles traveling across the country towards the front line. According to one army source, even with Germany's motorways at full capacity, it would take a week. So they need to think of other arrangements. It goes on to say, this was as much to familiarize German civilians as the army as to what to do in the coming war. Okay, worrying language there. The ambulance service simulated a mass casualty event with multiple victims. So let me know in the comments here what you think of this, because this is I think this is very disturbing. And we haven't talked a lot about prepping on the channel for a while now, but I'm happy if you want some, more videos on that. I know they were very, very popular when I used to share with you some of my stories from when I was a soldier in the army, and, the sort of prepping supplies that I think are necessary for what we're coming into, things like that. Happy to share things. One of the things I shared with you last time was... it was this. Hold on, let me open it up. I think this is one thing that's really crucial for everyone to have. These are the emergency sleeping bags that we talked about. Super, super cheap. I mean, they're so low cost. It's the number one thing everyone should have in their sort of bug out bag in your cars, especially we're coming into winter now. In fact, let me play a second of this video just so you can see what it's
This is the emergency sleeping bag from Sierra Madre. It's going to protect your life from exposure to the elements in an emergency situation. The way it does that is with this NASA-developed material that reflects 95% of your body's heat right back onto you. It's windproof, waterproof, it's even stretchy, and you can use it to stay safe if you're ever exposed to brutal wind, extreme cold, heavy rain, or even extreme heat by flipping it inside out. If you want to be safe and protected, I recommend you get one of these guys for yourself and each of your family members.
So 4 or 5 of these things. In fact, I've got 4 of these bags. I actually got a fair amount of equipment from them. I've showed you on some of the more entertaining streams that we've done where I've got these bags in the studio and I've put it myself in it. I've grabbed swamp water, well, pond water. I haven't got a swamp, I've got a pond, but it was filthy. It was all brown, and I drank through the emergency straw that filters it all. And, you know, there's a lot of things that I've showed you on the channel before, but I'll drop a link below in the description for that emergency sleeping bag, because we are coming into winter for, I know some of you are probably in Australia going, not for us, Neil, not for us. But for those of us who are coming into winter, you know, there's certain things I would recommend you think about. I mean, it's just crazy. Everything's just gone mad now. Everything's just going crazy. They want to go towards war. There was an announcement recently, prepare your boys, you know, for war and things like that. Ursula, hasn't she got 7 children? And how many of them are going to go in the military? Probably 0. How on earth did she have 7 children and be a lifelong politician? That is interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's an interesting one that I'll look into. There's a couple of other things then that took place. Let me show you this one. This has just come out of Sky News. More than 450 Russian drones attack Ukraine's energy sites. Now, the reason I thought this was really interesting, I want to talk about this a little bit, is because I also saw another article, which I'll show you in a second. But I'll tell you just before we talk about that why this is sort of interesting. So there's 450 drones, 32 missiles, and an overnight attack on Ukraine's energy sector. So, in fact, even more important to have emergency sleeping bags. It's said that there were power outages in 9 regions, 600,000 households, millions of people have no heating right now as we're going into the winter. But I think we got them sorted now. Okay, so the reason I thought this was very interesting, let me open this then, was because this came out of the Forces news here, and it says, Patriot proof, more Russian missiles are breaching Ukraine's US-made defenses. So this is a really, really big story that's not really in the news. They're not talking about this at all. And I'm going to read a couple of points from the article here. So a Western official briefed on Patriot performance data said a pattern had emerged in which the missiles now are behaving differently in their terminal phase, and the Patriots are not able to intercept them. So they're trying to figure out what exactly Russia has done to make their missiles not be able to be intercepted by the Patriot anymore. He said it will be a concern for a number of NATO countries that rely on the Patriot system for anti-missile defense. So there's just reading through how many of these now are getting through. Okay, this is interesting. It said previously they were able to intercept 37%, but now it's just 6% due to the new technology and the tactics. So, wow, this is a massive game changer, and I think that probably sort of reflects why we're seeing this from NATO now, with these new exercises, with these nucleus exercises, because they're saying that it would take Germany a week to get their troops into position. We need to do something to hold that line. And let me know what you think's going on here. But it just seems interesting that in the last week, in the last 2 days actually, all of this is broken at the same time as the Patriot system is now not able to intercept most of these rockets and drones. I think it's mainly actually the rockets, the missiles. It's not necessarily the drones. It's the tactics of these missiles. So we've sort of seen this escalation. I think it's very interesting. I'd like to know what you think in the comments below here. And someone's saying posh bedroom. No, it's just a hotel room. I'm just traveling at the moment. Looking at some of the UK cities still, but it's very interesting, shall we say. I was in Leeds the other day. Goodness me, if you're from Leeds, please put a comment in the chat. What has happened to Leeds, the city of Leeds in the UK? It looks like it looks like certain parts of it look like a third world country. Buildings falling down, graffiti everywhere. You're walking through rubbish on the street, potholes, burned out cars. What is going on? Gangs everywhere. I don't know what has happened. That was the city I've just been in. I was going to film it and I thought, no, This is just crazy. I'm going to save it for London. I think that's the next city I'm going to film next week. But there we go. Businessman 678 says, not going to fight for another man's war. Yeah, that's what most people are saying. Dart says, Britain needs a regime change ASAP. Rod says, the poo hole tour 2025. Yeah, it is actually some of the cities. But others are really nice. So Harrogate, never been to Harrogate before. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful city. I can see what's happening. People are sort of moving from the dumps, as it were, into certain places. So you're seeing the sort of more affluent retirees. They're all sort of converging into certain areas. Harrogate's one that I saw this week. It's very, very, very interesting. Okay, anything else coming through the chat, or I'll end the stream here. Good. All right, good. Thanks for being online. Really appreciate it. Let me know what you think of what I talked about in today's stream. Check out those emergency sleeping bags. Super cheap. Protect your family. And apart from that, I'll see you on the next one. Take care. God bless.